Elvis is a 2022 biological film starring Austin Butler as Elvis and Tom Hanks as his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. The film has received positive reviews, with people praising the work of Butler, but Hanks himself has received more mediocre reception. I suppose that's a bit of an issue when you're playing real characters. People tend to judge you a little bit harsher. Praise has been given to Luhrmanns' direction, cinematography, editing, and pretty much everything to do with the sound, which is pretty key for a film about someone like Elvis. It is easy to see why it went on to receive 8 Academy Awards, and with a runtime of 2.5 hours, the film still flew by. To be fair, I didn't know much about Elvis' storied history beforehand, whereas I do know some people who were intimately familiar with it have been less than enamoured with the film itself. Elvis is an immersive feature from the very beginning, and getting to see how Butler manages to embody Elvis himself in the mannerisms, movement, and even speech is something that demonstrates to the viewer the amount of time that he must have taken to perfect those characteristics of himself, to the level that they're even creeping into some of his acceptance speeches with the awards that he has been receiving for the role. The film establishes the main characters early, with us opening with Parker's explanation as to how he met Elvis to begin with, and the fascination that Elvis had with African American music and how that set him apart from his peers. That we end up getting a focal point of the film based around Parker's ideals, and the way in which we end up understanding that when Elvis goes to Beale Street, which is kind of an origin for some African American music, that this becomes a focal point for Elvis himself, and the way in which he developed was key in assisting for all of those eras. Beale Street was where Elvis used to go to listen to his African American music, and he took inspiration from that into his own music and the songs that he created. That by taking the time to show Elvis's background, we're able to better understand the effect that being preyed upon by Parker had on his mental health going forward. And it does beg the question that while Elvis was undoubtedly talented, how successful would he have been without a manager like Parker going forward in his career? We can see that he would have had the ability to do it, but would he have had maybe enough, not a backbone, but kind of a sinister element to him that Parker clearly had? Was that something that he needed another party to show to him? Getting to see the effect that Elvis had then and now, the best-selling solo artist of all time, shows how influential Elvis was. Given a time when barriers were everywhere, he still managed to be so successful. It is very easy to see why he was such a huge star and such a capable performer, and then at the same time why Butler had so many reservations beforehand when it came to taking on this role. Throughout it all, you have to become the physical embodiment of the individual you are effectively pretending to be, while at the same time staying true to yourself and your craft. That Butler was able to do this in such a way that has led to awards. When you do this type of thing well, that's generally what happens. You get spoken about in award season, you get classified as the physical embodiment or reincarnation of that individual. But when you do this type of role and it doesn't work out, for some people it can be a real career ender. You begin to struggle in the establishment of yourself in roles afterwards because people view you as that single failure. Trying to walk the line between yourself and the person you're pretending to be has to be difficult, and we are grateful that in this scenario that Butler was able to do it in such an exquisite manner to result in the nominations and potential awards that he may continue to receive going forward. But with that said, I am inclined to believe the film has a better chance in the technical categories, with things such as film editing, production design and costume design, and maybe sound. We'll see how that goes. But a key feature for films like this is being able to engross the audience near instantaneously into believing that they've been transported to another time. The film needs to make you feel as if you've just entered a time machine and gone back to the era itself, which is something that I never doubted throughout this film. I immediately felt that I'd moved from where I am today to where Elvis was then. It was never in doubt. The only thing that got slightly questionable was sometimes it felt like you were just watching gaudy visuals, which thankfully never lasted for too long. It was something that did take place, but it passed within a scene or two. That The real issue was in editing, because you have songs in this that are a plot device rather than just a feature of the film. And each number has to progress the story forward, and the way in which Elvis even devised some of his songs became a story in and of itself, a smaller plot. Some have taken issue with the point of view that the film took, which is where it told the story from Colonel Parker's point of view, believing that that led to a flaw and instead would have liked it unfold from a different perspective. But as a whole, Elvis is definitely a better film than I had expected, and while at times it does border on fictional, that just shows the effect that the king of rock and roll had at the height of his fame. And that life is a roller coaster, and for Elvis himself, he had to reinvent himself time and time again, especially when the fact that Parker effectively bled him dry for years and took advantage of everything that he was. That Elvis tried to remain relevant in all the ways that he possibly could, with the family that he has remaining looking favourably on the film. This shows that the film itself was a spectacle and something that should be appreciated for what it was, and any of the issues that people have are probably nitpicking to a degree, but I look forward to seeing what other people's opinions are on the film. Maybe others who know Elvis and his history intimately will have a very different opinion to what mine was.